There's a dock behind my house that my wife and I built with our own hands. Every morning for 34 years I walk down those same wooden planks with 2 cups of coffee. One for me. One for her. She's been gone 3 years now. I still bring 2 cups. Some mornings that dock is the only thing that makes me feel like she's still here. Which is exactly why when a stranger's padlock showed up on the gate to that dock this spring, something in me didn't just get angry. Something in me broke. My name is Harold Bennett. I'm 74 years old. I spent 40 years fixing boat engines at a marina 2 towns over, the kind of job where your hands are permanently stained with grease, and you sleep well at night because you fixed something today. My neighborhood, Lakeview Hollow, isn't fancy. No gates, no marble fountains. Just 43 houses circling a small, quiet lake that's been community property since it was developed back in 1974. Every deed here, every single one, includes lake access as a shared right. That's not opinion. That's just how the neighborhood was built. Or at least that's how it used to work. 6 years ago, a woman named Diane Prescott moved in. New money. Big personality. The kind of smile that looks perfect in photos and feels like ice in person. Within 18 months she was HOA president. At first it seemed harmless. New landscaping. New signage. A vision for the neighborhood, she called it. I didn't love it, but I didn't fight it either. That was my mistake. Because somewhere between the new flower beds and the new welcome sign, Diane Prescott quietly decided the lake wasn't for everyone anymore. It was a Tuesday morning in April. I walked down to the dock the way I always do, coffee in each hand, and found a chain looped through the gate. A brand new padlock. Brass. Shiny. Expensive looking, like everything Diane touched. Taped above it was a laminated notice. Lake access restricted to approved residents only. By order of the HOA board. Effective immediately. I read it 3 times. Approved residents. I'd lived here for 36 years. If I wasn't approved, who exactly was? I went straight to the HOA office. Diane barely looked up from her desk. New liability policy, Harold, she said. Our insurance carrier flagged the dock as a risk. We had to restrict access until we complete a safety review. Restrict access to who? I asked. Approved residents. It's all in the new handbook. I've had access to that lake since before you were in this neighborhood. She just smiled. A small, practiced smile. Times change, Harold. I left that office with more questions than answers. But one detail stuck with me the whole drive home. I'd seen 3 cars parked at the dock that same week. None of them belonged to anyone on my street. All 3 had guest passes signed by Diane Prescott herself. Over the next 2 months I started paying attention. Really paying attention. The Nguyen's, who'd lived here 15 years, got turned away for unpaid dues they'd already paid. The Whitakers were told the dock was closed for maintenance. The same week Diane hosted a birthday party for her sister right there on the water. Meanwhile, a rotating cast of Diane's friends came and went freely. Jet skis. Pontoon boats. Wine coolers on the dock at sunset. Nobody on the actual HOA board seemed to know exactly who'd approved them. Funny thing about that word, approved? Nobody could ever show me where the approval list actually lived. I want to be honest with you about something. This was never really about the dock. It was about a photograph on my nightstand, Ruth in a sun hat, laughing, half-soaked from falling off that same dock decades ago. It was about the fact that some mornings, standing at that water's edge is the only place grief doesn't swallow me whole. Diane didn't just put a lock on a gate. She locked me out of the one place I still felt close to my wife. And I don't think she ever once considered that when she was scheduling her sister's birthday party. So I did what I know how to do. I got methodical. I filed a formal request for the HOA's approved resident list. Diane's response came back 2 weeks later. The list was under revision and not yet finalized for release. I requested the insurance liability report that supposedly justified the lockdown. That request went unanswered entirely. I brought it up at the next HOA meeting. Diane, can you show the board the insurance document you referenced? I don't need to justify board decisions to individual homeowners, Harold. Someone behind me murmured that it wasn't really an answer. Diane's voice got sharper. This meeting is about landscaping proposals. Let's stay on topic. That was the moment the room went quiet in a way I recognized. Not agreement. Fear. People had seen what happened to homeowners who pushed back before. Sudden violations. Sudden fines. Sudden safety reviews of their property. Diane hadn't just taken the lake. She taught an entire neighborhood to stay silent. I almost gave up. I want to admit that. 74 years old, tired, grieving, Some mornings it felt easier to just accept the lock and mourn quietly from my porch instead. But then I remembered something Ruth used to say. If you want to know what's really true, Harold, don't ask the people in charge. Ask the paperwork. Paperwork doesn't lie. People do. So I drove to the county records office. A clerk named Sam pulled our neighborhood's original development file, a thick, dusty folder that hadn't been touched in decades. Lakeview Hollow, he said, flipping through it. You're looking for something specific? Anything about lake access rights? Original terms. He kept flipping, then paused. There's an attached survey map here. Looks like it predates the plat itself. He slid a brittle, folded document across the counter. The moment I unfolded it, my hands started shaking. It wasn't just old. It was from 1946. Nearly 30 years before the neighborhood even existed. An original county survey map of the lake, hand-drawn, ink faded to sepia. And right along the shoreline, in careful cursive handwriting, was a single sentence that would end up changing everything. Shoreline access reserved in perpetuity for all future parcel owners within surveyed boundary. No exclusion permitted by subsequent development. In perpetuity. No exclusion permitted. Not board discretion. Not approved residents only. Guarantee. Written 80 years before Diane Prescott ever hung a padlock on that gate. The original developers hadn't just allowed lake access when they built the neighborhood. They'd been legally required to preserve it, forever, by the terms of a survey that predated their own development. I made 12 copies of that map. Then I did something I'd never done in 36 years of quietly minding my own business. I knocked on doors. Penguins. The Whitakers. The young couple who'd moved in last year and had never even seen the lake up close. One by one, I laid that map on their kitchen tables. One by one, I watched their expressions change from confusion to disbelief to something sharper. Something that looked a lot like mine. The next HOA meeting had more cars outside than I'd ever seen. Word travels fast when the truth finally has something solid to stand on. Diane started the meeting the way she always did, confident, composed, in control. That didn't last long. I stood up holding the map. Diane, I'd like to introduce something into the record. A 1946 county survey predating this development. Harold, I'm not sure that's relevant to tonight's. Someone called out from the back. Let him finish. I kept going. This map guarantees permanent lake access to every parcel in this neighborhood. No board. No president. No exceptions. It's not a policy you can revise, Diane. It's a legal condition attached to the land itself. For the first time in 6 years, I watched Diane Prescott go completely silent. And once that silence broke, it broke all at once. So if this access was always guaranteed, someone asked, why exactly did we need a liability review to lock it down? The safety concerns were your friends approved because of safety, Diane? Or because they're your friends? Nobody clapped. Nobody cheered. It was quieter than that. Heavier. The sound of 43 homeowners realizing, all at the same moment, that they'd spent months apologizing to someone who never had the right to exclude them in the first place. Within a week, a copy of the map was in the hands of a county attorney. Within a month, the HOA received formal notice. The access restriction was unenforceable and had to be reversed immediately in writing to every homeowner. Within 6 weeks, an emergency vote removed Diane Prescott from the board entirely. She didn't attend the vote. I heard she moved 2 towns over not long after. Somewhere, I assume, without an 80-year-old map waiting in a county basement to undo her. The lock came off on a Thursday morning. I remember because it was raining and I still walked down anyway. 2 cups of coffee. Same as always. These days the dock isn't quiet like it used to be. Kids fish off the end of it after school. Penguins finally got their pontoon in the water. Mrs. Whitaker brings her grandkids down every Sunday. I won't pretend I don't miss the silence sometimes. But I think Ruth would have liked this better. A lake full of people instead of one full of rules. People like Diane count on one thing above everything else. They count on you believing that whoever's holding the pen, whoever's sitting behind the desk, gets to decide what's true. But sometimes the truth isn't sitting behind a desk at all. Sometimes it's folded up in a drawer 80 years old, just waiting for someone tired enough or stubborn enough to go looking for it. I was both. And some mornings that's exactly what it takes. If you've ever had someone try to weaponize against you, leave a comment below. Tell me what happened. Tell me how it ended. And if you enjoyed this story, subscribe so you don't miss the next one.